Hello, my loves. Hi, it's good to see you. Oh, it's been a while. Again. Yeah. I want to talk about a topic that has been calling me for quite a while, actually. And it fits. Again, my delayed bringing out another video on this channel. I want to talk about honoring cycles and just the unique rhythm that our life actually has. The unique rhythm, our own personal cycles in our lives, in our bodies, in the places, the nature that is surrounding us. And yeah, so I've been wanting to talk about this topic for quite a while now, actually. There were reasons why I partly put it off, partly listened to my own cycle. And so it took me a while. Anyways, I'm here and I want to talk about it. So, yeah, honoring cycles. This is a topic that keeps coming out for me and the collective for quite a while now. I think maybe even, at least a month. I can tell that it's been present. And like I say, it's been tugging my sleeve and I've partly been ignoring it. But yeah, it's also on my other channel where I record reading videos, tarot readings, channel messages. There is a lot of emphasis on this topic of honoring like your own cycles, especially regarding rest periods, because we like to think of our lives at very like a linear progression in time, just like a linear timeline. And we like to look at it and see like how much work can we fit in this timeline. And we often forget to honor the rest periods as well. So this and more we will be talking about. And if you've been following me, if you've been following my videos, you also know that my way of talking about things is very spiral. I'm moving in spirals. So if you're new here, don't be surprised if you feel like I'm jumping around or moving in circles. I do that. I do that a lot. But if you trust the process, in the end, it always makes sense. So yeah, I'm also asking my guides here because I feel like I am very much in the spiralic energy today. And I will need some support with the structure. So please guide me through this video here. I already touched on quite a few topics here with our society not really leaving a lot of room, a lot of space for more cyclical processes, for our cyclical nature that every human has. We are cyclical beings in our nature. While the mind is often like a way more linear, focused, I'm calling it a being now. Because I very often feel like our minds are actually their own beings. um, but yeah, our whole world is actually very linear. It's valuing linear processes. Most of our world is planned and organized around linear timelines. And this is what we also like to look at when we try to evaluate, for example, how, what is the word? I want to say valuable, but that's not the right word. Basically, how good of a job we've done with something. We always look at the linear timeline, like how much progress did we make towards a certain goal, for example. And if things are not happening quickly enough, or we cannot see the direct result, we usually tend to dismiss it, or think we're doing something wrong. And this often happens because we are not seeing or valuing the cyclical nature of certain processes. And because if something moves in a cycle, moves in a spiral, it takes more time than this linear, direct approach. And don't get me wrong, there are benefits to moving in a direct way sometimes. And it's also something that needs to be combined. Okay, it's not about just saying like only the cyclical nature is like the perfect way to go about things, just as much as it's not like only the linear way of doing things, but it's the two things combined. It's about bringing them together. And what happens when you have a cycle and you combine it with a forward movement, and I already said it, the end result is a spiral. So you have this cyclical nature, but it's not running in circles and you don't get anywhere, but it's actually progressing. It's progressing. And I always see it like this, like it's moving through space like that. This is just my perception. I'm not sure if this is just what my brain does, what my mind does, but this is what I see. Like it's moving like that through space. And so we actually are moving forward. We actually are progressing. We are growing, but not in a linear fashion, but in a sporadic fashion. And it takes more, maybe a bit more, I want to say effort, but that's not. It takes a bit of a different approach or a different view on things to actually see the progression. You have to look at the bigger picture. Yeah, okay. So you have to actually look at the bigger picture and to track something over a longer period of time in order to see the growth that is happening, to see the progression that is happening. And because we are, sometimes we don't have the patience to do that, because we want the direct result. We want to see the result, immediate result. We don't really take the time to let those bigger processes unfold. Wow. Sorry, I was distracted for a second here because that sounded like a high-speed aircraft flying over the house. Anyways, that's interesting. Right now, I'm like thinking of like one of those, military, like really fast planes, just like zooming through space, and it's like this very direct, goal-oriented course. It's very aggressive. It's very aggressive. And I mean, I keep repeating myself, but this is the world that we're living in. This is the overall mindset that our society is operating on. And I just see 11:11 on the timer. The other approach that I'm talking about is taking more space. It's taking more patience. It needs a bit more, like, again, like a different viewpoint. And it wants you to not focus on one straight direct line, but it wants you to focus on both the progression and the cycle in it. And we are not taught those things, right? We're not taught to look at the cycles in our lives. We are taught to look at the direct progressions that we are making. We are taught to look at, okay, this is like how much you put in, this is what you get out of it. And if you do not see the immediate result, we always jump to the conclusion that something is not working, something is not done right. But if you, for example, if you've ever seen a child grow up and develop, and I have 2 little nieces, and I just love watching them growing up and developing, from like, one is a baby, the other is she's turning 5 soon. So you can just watch them, like really, like every step they are making, literally every step they are making. Especially the little one right now, she's learning to walk and to stand, and you can tell that this is not a linear process. You can tell that one day she's standing up and like taking her first steps, walking, and maybe a few days later or even the next day, it's like she can't even really stand up and grab onto something, because this is just how it is. Like it feels like, okay, she's making 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And I keep repeating myself, but it's just not a linear process. So yeah, I mean, I'm the same. Like I'm like everyone else. I can get impatient, and sometimes I really feel like nothing is moving forward. And but what I like to do when I feel that way, I like to take a step back and just look at the bigger picture of my life. Of, okay, but like, if you're honest with yourself, look at where you've been a few months ago, or where you've been maybe a year ago or 5 years ago. And I bet you that each and every one of you can find something where you can say, oh wow, actually, just, I don't know, a few years ago, I would have reacted in a completely different way to a certain thing, or I would have gone about this thing in a completely different way. And I've grown in that area of my life. And now I'm realizing how far I've come, but I didn't really give myself credit for it because it usually is not that linear from A to B process and end result. Like I do this once and then I get out this end result. This is just not how those kind of things are working. This is also the reason why we often overlook how much progress we're actually making, because it is moving in those cycles, and we tend to overly focus on the quote unquote bad things, on where we are making those two steps, this one step back, but we're not valuing that we actually before that we've been taking two steps forward, and we're just ignoring that. So, I like using myself as an example because this is just where I can relate to my own processes. So this is just what I know best. With this channel here, for example, I like to criticize myself that I do not post as regularly as I expect myself to do it. But the thing is, I do post on like some kind of a regular, like the schedule. There's some kind of regularity in it, and at least I keep coming back to it. And this is much more than what I've done in other projects that I started before, like in years back or months back. What I did was I abandoned my projects. I started something, then it didn't work out the way I thought it would, had to, should, whatever, and then I abandoned it. So what I'm doing differently now is I'm coming back to it. I keep coming back to it. And yes, it's not as regularly as I want it to be, but at least I keep coming back. So this is my way of right now. Like, this is honoring my own process. This is honoring my own growth cycle, and honoring the progress I've been making. It's not perfect yet, but to be honest, we're not here to be perfect. We're here to learn and to grow and to evolve and continue on our journeys. And this is the journey. Sorry, I had to pause there for a moment because some interruptions were happening. And it took me out a bit. But yeah, so maybe that's even something, that's an interesting thought. So if we have this straight line, we tend to be a lot more perfectionistic about it, because it's like we want it to be this straight, perfect line. It has to be like this clear, straight movement, without interruptions, without there's no. I see someone drawing a line with a ruler, and there is just no wobbly lines allowed. But if you're moving in a cycle, you actually can be less perfectionistic about it, because you can just say, well, I can just keep returning to it, and I try over again, and I try over again, and I try over again, over and over and over again, until it works, until it actually works the way I want to. And right now I'm just reminded of a saying like this, the saying of continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. And I think it very much fits this whole idea of moving in a spiral. Again, like a little kid that is learning to walk, and it's it's standing up and it's training the muscles. It needs to engage, to learn to engage and to strengthen. And the muscles in between, they need rest. And then the brain has to make new connections. And like all of those steps have to happen in order for the child in the end being able to walk. But so, okay, I'm getting something about it probably, like, the child needs to learn to engage the muscles. So it's standing up and then it's trying out maybe to take a few steps. And it needs to learn to balance. And like I said, like forming those new connections of like the movements and all of those things. And then it needs to rest because this is a lot of work for the body and for the brain. Like all those new things that it needs to learn. And then it's maybe it looks like it's starting over again. But it's actually just, like returning to those steps, but with the new, newly integrated information. And it's actually quite astonishing to see that, because sometimes you feel like they've been like, messing around and trying things out, and then you feel like they're taking steps back and all of that. And then all of a sudden they wake up one morning and they just walk. And you're like, what? How? Wow. This is amazing. So, and it's not just little children. I mean, it's like if you look in nature, you can see those cyclical processes everywhere. So why do we humans think that we are different, or why do we think that we as adults have to function in a different way? Of course we don't. Of course we don't. We are just like, we're expecting us to know everything and to be good at everything right away, or to have it all figured out. But we are constantly learning new things, and we are constantly evolving. And I mean, you who are watching this, you are on a journey where you put growth, like growth is a priority for you. So it is crucial for you to understand that growth is not a linear process. It's not. And it's interesting because you can even see when I don't know if you've ever seen one of those hyperlapse videos where you can see how a plant is growing, and like those little seedlings, they actually move in spirals. You can see it when they're growing. Like they're not moving like this. They're moving in spirals. So it's actually like it's part of nature, and it's part of our human nature. And so what really wants to come through with this message today, or with this video today, again, like what I said in the beginning, honoring the cycles. It's really about honoring our cyclical nature, and also understanding that each part of each cycle needs something different. And there is now this like aspect of seasonality coming in. If you look at the year as like this huge cycle that is just repeating every 365 days, following the movements of the sun, and depending on where the sun is, there's a different season happening. Also, of course, depending on where on the planet you are. There are places in our on our planet where they have less, not as strongly felt seasons as in other places. But they are seasons nonetheless, and they are more rainy periods, for example, and more dry periods. So it does depend on also like your surroundings, but still, humans still have their internal cycles, and they have their like their daily cycles, their monthly cycles, especially women, of course. And it all is important to honor those unique cycles that are yours. And now there's something coming through. And I'm sorry, I'm a bit distracted right now because there's stuff happening outside my door. So I feel like I'm a bit distracted, but I try to keep on track here. And not just that, like there are different kind of disturbances coming in. It's interesting. I feel like there's actually something trying to come through with that. Like they are trying to draw my attention to something. There's something about fixation. Again, with the perfection and with like being too fixated on how something needs to look. And then there's no room for disturbances. So if disturbances come in, it kind of messes up the whole thing. I could decide to either cut it out of the video or to start over again. But, you know, it's like the whole way the message is unfolding is actually reflecting what I've been talking about. And I've been trying to keep it like on track, but I feel like sometimes my guides do that they just throw stuff into to bring through a different, like, to make a point. Okay, so they want me to talk about rhythm. Let's talk about rhythm then. Yeah, it's about finding your own unique rhythm. So, like I said, okay, we have those external environments, for example, where we're living. So we cannot say, like, I was born and raised and also currently living in Central Europe. So we do have, like, I'm used to a rather I'm used to like the classical seasonality that you would think about with like a distinct spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And I love it. I love the seasons. But I mean, there are a lot of people living on this planet who are used to a different kind of seasonality. Doesn't mean that they don't have seasons. They are just used to different seasons. So this does something to you as a human, as your experience, as what it means to live on this earth, what you're used to, what you were like what you are accustomed to, what your body is in tune with. So this is something that is important. Then there is this part of what I talked about just now with, like, for example, being a woman, like the hormonal cycles. So men and women have different hormonal cycles. And the thing is, the hormonal cycle of a woman is very, very complex. But it's worth looking at it. It's worth learning about it because it will show you a lot about how you function, how you work, how your energy levels are, how your creative cycles are, how you think. For example, I'm in a period of my cycle right now where I sometimes have trouble finding words, remembering certain words. I jumble over my words. I'm like, it's a phenomenon, and I'm not the only one who experiences that. And I used to work as a texter, a copywriter, and I would really pressure myself and criticize myself a lot for not being able to put out the same content that I was able to in other periods, until I actually, and I think it was during that time that I was made conscious of that phenomenon, and I raised that subject with my coworkers, and they all of, like, we were 4 or 5 women working together, and all of them could relate, and they were like, wow, I thought it was just me. But we realized all of us were experiencing the same thing. So we started to arrange our like the work and how we were putting the work out, that those of us who were actually in that period didn't have to put out a lot of content during those days, but that the other ones would do more of that. And we could, because we were pretty free, and we could arrange our tasks in a way that it would suit us for our for the time of the month that we were in. So those are those, like, those little details that are actually quite valuable of knowing and noticing. So I do get something about maybe keeping a journal about it, and talking with other women about it, for example. And also for the males out there, first of all, it's good to know those things about the women in your life, and it's not just that they are sometimes a bit grumpy or in pain or whatever, but like there's a whole lot, like there's really a lot to it. And actually it can be quite, like, it can be a superpower, and it's quite magical if you actually know how to work with it. And yeah, I mean, males, you also have cycles. You have daily cycles. And so this is bringing me to a different kind of cycle that all humans have, which is, for example, your wake and sleep cycle. And I mean, for example, I'm running on a pretty much like the 24-hour cycle, but I do know someone who does not. And it's sometimes a challenge to sync it up with like the outside world, but it's possible and it's doable, and it sometimes needs a bit more creativity and flexibility, but yeah, it's doable. So maybe that's something that some of you are experiencing too, that you do actually not really fit into what society is expecting of you, like on what kind of timelines and schedules you're supposed to be running. And again, I hear honoring your own cycles. So what are your own cycles? What is your own way of moving through your days, your months, your years? Maybe you realize that you somehow don't really sync up with the movement of the sun in the area where you're living. maybe that's not the place you're supposed to be living. Maybe there's another place on this very beautiful and big planet where you actually might sync up in a better way with this movement of the sun. Quite possible. So this might be like, those might be things that you could look into if you feel like you're struggling a bit with finding your own rhythm, or actually like being in sync with the rhythm of the outside world, and where does your own rhythm fit in there. So like I say, like there's no one size fits all solution to that. And what is asked of you in that regard is to really get to know your own cycles, to get to know your own rhythm, and to find creative ways in making it work with the outside rhythm of the world and the area that is surrounding you and the people that are surrounding you. Because of course, if you are part of a family, for example, it's not that easy to like, and everyone has a different cycle, or like there are external schedules that you have to adhere to. I hear you. I see, like, especially if you have children or a workplace that you have to go to. It's because I can already hear the protests. And I feel you. I hear you. It's really, right now, all I'm saying is consciousness. Be aware of it, and don't even look for the solutions yet. Just get to know yourself. Stay curious, stay open, and just look at yourself and maybe see how this might be the reason for why you always feel tired or stressed out or overwhelmed, because you're trying to fit into a rhythm or a schedule or a cycle that is not yours, that is not your own rhythm. So yeah, it feels complete. It seems like that's it for today. Thanks for being here. I love talking about that topic, and I feel like I know that there will be more about it coming out, because it's one of my favorite topics, actually. It's quite a surprise that I haven't talked about it yet. And there are also like a lot of historical reasons and developments that are influencing us today, and I would love to talk about those in upcoming videos. So if you're interested, just let me know, and I will see how I can fit it in, how I can, yeah, address those things, if you'd like to hear about it. And yeah, again, like as always, I would love to hear from you. Leave me a comment or a like. And if you're new here, I would also love for you to leave a subscription. And oh yeah, right. I actually, and this will be coming soon, I was thinking about different ways that if you're interested in it, how you could work with me. Something I've been putting off for quite some time, but yeah, I'm working on that, and I will set up a few things. So if you're interested in working one-on-one with me, or in also readings, there will be something coming up soon regarding that, and I will let you know. All right, my loves. Thanks for being here. Thanks for meandering through this message with me, as always. And yeah, thanks for putting in your time and energy here. I love you so much, and see you in the next video. Until then, take care. Bye.